Let me start screen share again. Okay. I hope you can see my screen now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining our second AEM user group, uh, where we'll be talking about Adobe Managed CDN. I'm Jeanette. I'm the co-leader for this AEM user group London chapter, and currently working as a software engineer in JP Morgan Chase. And we also have Soumya. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Janeet. So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. My name is Soumya Jain, and I am the lead software engineer in Nuffield Health, London. I'm very excited to run this session today because I have actually worked on the Adobe Managed CDN, and we'll be going deep into how AEM uses Fastly as its managed CDN. We'll take a practical perspective, not just theory. So, like by the end of the session, you will know exactly how to uh, develop the CDN YAML file, how to manage the AM CDN, how to deploy CDN configurations, and understand what options are available around security. Okay, so let's begin. Um, so here's like before we begin, here's a look at some exciting AM user groups happening globally. Adobe's community is very active, and whether you are interested in content supply chain, year-end wrap-ups, or 2026 future roadmaps, these sessions offer deep insights with industry professionals and Adobe champions. Feel free to scan the QR code, register, and participate. It definitely helps to stay updated with global trends happening in AM. And of course, one of the biggest event for the Adobe ecosystem, Adobe Summit 2026. It'll take place from April 19 to April 22, 2026 next year, live in Las Vegas, and is available online worldwide. This is Adobe's flagship event showcasing innovations in AEM, Experience Cloud, AI driven content supply chains, personalizations, and customer journeys. If your organization uses AEM or is exploring AI driven experience management, this is definitely worth attending. You'll get hands on labs, workshops, roadmap sessions, and networking with Adobe engineers, partners, and customers. So please go to summit.adobe.com and register. Okay. Quick reminder about our house rules. This is a community space, so we want to keep it safe, collaborative, and learning focused. So we just request you to please no self promotion, no sales pitches, and please don't reach out to other members unless they explicitly agree. Also, any use cases shared here should remain confidential unless allowed to share it. Let's make this session a collaborative place for knowledge sharing. This session is being recorded and will later be available on the AEM User Group YouTube channel. If you don't want to appear on the recording, feel free to turn off your camera and microphone. You can watch the full recording later at your convenience. And if you have any question, you can mail to advocacy@adobe.com. And of course, stay connected. If you're not yet part of the wonderful London AM user group on Bevy, I highly recommend joining. All our events, recordings, session summaries, and announcements are posted there. Just go to the link, create an account using your Adobe associated email, and join the chapter. You will automatically receive updates about our all future sessions. Now I'll pass on to Janeet to start with the today's topic. Thank you.
Okay. So without further waiting, let's get into the session today. So here's the agenda, what we'll be covering. So we'll start with the fundamentals of Adobe Managed CDN, like what it is, how it works. Then we'll briefly talk about customer managed CDN, when you might bring your own CDN and the implications of bringing your customer managed CDN. We'll talk about certificate and domain management, like how to set up SSL, custom domains, and domain mapping. Uh, then we'll also talk about IP allow listing, which is done in uh, Cloud Manager. Then we'll Somya will walk us through regarding the CDN YAML file, which is the configuration heart of CDN setup, which will involve traffic filters, redirects, routing rules, etc. We'll talk about cache purging, and we'll also talk about WAF, which is Web Application Firewall, which is one of the important aspect of a CDN. And we'll also see how configuration pipelines are used to deploy the CDN changes, and how ELK dashboards and Action Center work in case of monitoring and alerting. Okay, so what is Adobe Managed CDN? So Adobe Managed CDN is a fully managed con- content delivery network built on Fastly's global edge network. This is included automatically with every AEM as a cloud service license. So no additional setup, no separate contracts, and no manual infrastructure management is required when you're onboarding Fastly. uh, like how it works. So this CDN sits in front of your AEM published tier and handles all content delivery globally. At the edge, it performs several critical functions like caching, routing, SSL termination, security checks, and traffic optimization, to name a few. Uh, what are the benefits of Adobe Managed CDN? So one of the important benefits is it is native to AEM, because Fastly is the default CDN for AEM as a cloud service. This native integration means you get deep platform integration out of the box. You reduce dependency on external CDNs like CloudFront, Cloudflare, or Akamai, which minimizes configuration conflicts and complexity, right? The second one is optimize caching performance. So Fastly integrates directly with the AEM dispatcher. This enables smarter caching for both static assets as well as dynamic content. Compare this to CDN agnostic solutions that mainly focus on static assets. Fastly understands AEM's publishing patterns and caches accordingly. It has simplified security and traffic management, like all CDN logic, like headers, caching rules, redirects, rewrites, IP allow listing, and other security policies. It's all managed through a single configuration file called cdn.yaml, which you maintain in your code base. So this will give you a consistent, environment safe way to manage everything from routing to security policies. And last but not the least, cost and operational efficiency. Because you don't maintain or pay for a separate CDN vendor, all delivery, security, and caching are centralized under one hood, which is managed by Adobe Stack, which will reduce your operational overhead and other costs. Okay. Now, before this, it was always about custom managed CDN, right? AEM, if you talk about AEM, it was always about having your own CDN, or CDN from a vendor like Akamai, CloudFront, etc. So you can still bring your custom managed CDN, right? You can still bring your own CDN, which is managed. Uh, so a lot of use cases we might see, for example, where in your existing enterprise company, you might have a contract which has been agreed for a few years, or there might be certain strategic decisions, enterprise level, which might not allow you to switch easily to a new CDN, or say replace that CDN with Adobe Manage CDN. So for such cases, probably you might need to have your own CDN, which is managed by another vendor. Um, and there might be other cases where you might need advanced features, say example like dashboards. So Adobe Manage CDN doesn't have dashboard feature, so you might consider having a separate CDN altogether. Or say, for example, you have a multi-site or multi-origin architecture where AEM is just one of the many content sources you're managing. and there can be other sources like SAP or Salesforce, etc., which is already handled by the CDN, which is already in place. So for such use cases, you can have your custom managed CDN, but still you can't get rid of Fastly. As we can see in this picture, the dispatcher is fronted by Fastly, and then your CDN will come into the place, which will mean that there will be double caching, which can be easily avoided by not caching at Fastly side. So you will only manage all the caching rules in your custom managed CDN and not in Fastly. Otherwise, you will run into a lot of issues and latencies and basically all the caching related issues. Okay. Um, so the very first step in configuring the CDN will have to look into certificate and domain management. So certificate and domain management has a centralized cloud manager UI for adding, validating, renewing, and managing SSL certificates and custom domains. So we will see in the following slides what you can do in Cloud Manager, which will involve things like domain management, where you can add and manage your custom domains, verify those domains before using, and linking those domains to environments. We will also see how certificates are managed, how SSL certificates is managed using Adobe Managed Certificate or customer provided, how you can link certificates to the domains, and we will also see environment configuration where you can map domain to AEM environments. Uh, One thing to note is Adobe is not a DNS provider, so DNS must be configured and maintained externally. You can use any DNS providers, but Adobe is not the place where you need to manage your DNS. Okay, so let's talk about certificate management. So this is the first step, right? You need to add your SSL certificate into Cloud Manager. So there are two options. One is Adobe Manage Domain Validated type of certificate, and the other is Custom Manage OVEV certificate. So what is this Adobe Manage SSL certificate? So this is fully managed by Adobe, which means that setup, installation, and automatic updates, everything is taken care by Adobe. What you get is a domain validated SSL certificate, which is suitable for standard encryption needs. And Adobe is responsible in handling the complete life cycle like issuance, renewal, and deployment. You don't need to have any manual intervention. It eliminates the need to generate, upload, or manage certificates manually. So this is basically uh, in contrast to what is done in custom manage type of certificate, which is in the next slide here. So here, what we are saying is there's another way using custom manage organization validation or extended validation type of certificate, where you upload and manage the certificate. So this will require PEM format like public certificate, private key, and full chain. It must be manually validated in Cloud Manager. You will handle the certificate expiration and renewal, right? Adobe does not take care of all the renewals and things like that, which we just saw in the previous slide. Um, One certificate can be mapped to one or more custom domains, and it will provide you full control over certificate authority, validation level, and rotation policies. Okay, so the next step in Cloud Manager after you are done with certificate, adding the certificate is adding your custom domain. So this is done again in Cloud Manager where you can add your own domain and link it either to a Adobe Managed Certificate or your custom managed certificate. Key constraints to remember here is each Cloud Manager environment supports up to 500 custom domains, And a domain name must be unique per environment, obviously. You can't use the same domain across multiple environments. And custom domains are supported only for publish and preview services. Author does not support custom domains as of now. After this, the next step is to have the domain mapping, right? So you need to map your custom domain to a specific AEM publish or preview environment. So this ensures requests correctly route to dev, stage, or production environment based on how you set up your origin and tier. And you can have multiple domains per environment if needed. And all these steps are only for Adobe Managed CDN. If you want to onboard other CDN and not go with Adobe Managed CDN, then you will have to skip all the previous steps and only configure the CDN provider from here. And additional configurations will be required in your CDN to correctly point to AEM published here. So you'll have to select the second option, which you see, which says other CDN provider. Okay, so this is what we talked about certificate and domain management. Now, the other important thing is like how you can restrict your IPs so that it is inaccessible for outside your organization, or it's not visible to other customers and so on, right? So you have this IP allow listing feature in Cloud Manager, and this is commonly used for staging environments or say development environments or internal testing. So you can specify a maximum of 50 IP allow lists per program. And out of this 50 IP allow list, you can either specify 50 IPs or a CIDR blocks. And this applies to author, publish, or both, right? So you have full control of how you want to allow the IPs of AEM and different environments. Okay, so now I will hand over to Soumya again, who will mention or talk about CDN YAML file.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. That was great. So, till now, we have covered the infra setup, which is required for setting up your CDN. Now, we will move on to the actual development, deployment, and monitoring. So, this is one of the important part, which is the CDN YAML file. So, since Adobe doesn't give access to like dashboard as we covered before, all of our custom CDN rules are defined in this one file. And the basic sections which we can configure in CDN YAML are security filter, which is for DDoS protection, bot filtering, rate limiting, IP blocking, redirects for 301 or 302 redirects, origin selectors for deciding which backend, AM, maybe other CMS, Azure, or any other backend server which will handle the request transformation and response transformations for modifying headers and rewriting URLs if required. And there is also one other section which is purge authentication, which is used for cache purging. So CDN YAML file brings everything into a version controlled code, which is far easier to track and maintain. And the sections are given in which we can specify our own custom rules. Now we'll move to the setup and these some examples. So to get started on the setup, we have to create a config folder in our main AEM repo, which is the full stack repo. And this config folder sits parallel to all the other folders, which is like, if you are aware of the AEM repo architecture, like we have folders like all, core, UI apps, UI content. So this config folder also stands parallel to that. Then we can create a CDN YAML file under that folder. Now, important thing is that if we have different CDN requirement or rules for different environments, we can also create environment specific folder under the main config folder and then create a CDN YAML file under that. So it's basically environment specific CDN YAML file. If one global cdn YAML file works for all the environments in your case, then one is enough. And we do not need to create subfolders for environment. Now, every file requires three main properties, which is given here. One is kind CDN, which tells us that this is a CDN related file, version 1, and then the environment types in the metadata. Now, in the environment types, we have different environment, which is dev, stage, prod, or any other custom environment that you have. But the main are these. So you can specify if one CDN file is for all the environments, you can specify all as given here. Otherwise, you can just specify one according to your environment. And then we deploy this using a dedicated config pipeline. This only updates CDN rules and takes under 2 minutes. We'll cover this later in the session. And for the rule syntax, each rule mostly has name, when clause, and an action. So the when clause determines when the rule applies based on domain, path, query params, headers, cookies, or request methods. And action determines what should happen if a specific rule matches. So here we have an example of traffic filter rules. Traffic filter rules determine whether incoming requests are allowed, blocked, or challenged before they reach your AEM environment. These rules help enforce security, access control, compliance, and routing restrictions right at the CDN edge. Traffic filter rules use a when condition. You can match on like domain, tier, and path, IP ranges, headers, even HTTP methods as well. And once the condition matches, the rule can take actions like allow the request, block the request, or rate limit the request. So as we can see here, this is an example of rate limiting rule. Basically, what this rule is telling us that, first of all, this rule is applied to both the author and the published tier of the particular environment. And if in a 10 seconds window, more than 60 request appears, then a penalty of 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes, will apply to that particular client IP from which the request generated. Sorry. So that particular client IP which generated, suppose 100 requests in a 10-second window will get blocked for 5 minutes. So this is an example of a very basic rate limiting rule here. You can customize according to like your project architecture and your project rules, how you want to map this up. These rules are typically the first line of defense as they execute before any origin selection, redirects, or caching logic. So it protects us from the full security layer. Moving on, we have the origin selectors. Now, origin selector rules determine where a request should go. So by default, all requests go to the primary AEM publish environment because our domain is mapped to the publish or the preview AEM environment, right? But origin selectors allows us to override this behavior based on conditions. Like for example, you can route traffic for a specific path to AEM environment or to an old CMS if you're still using that and you are in the middle of migration. That is the case with my project. So I'm also using like origin selector rules to based on the path, like which request should go to the old CMS, which request should go to the AEM publish environment. You can also like one another example of this can be an API request or a beta environments for internal testing. Origin selection is extremely powerful because it gives you multi-origin capabilities at the CDN level without modifying your AEM code. And this is especially very, very helpful for migration scenarios, routing non-AEM requests without exposing internal domains, and hybrid architectures. So again, you can see we have like whenever there is a path like proxy or like something after that, which is like star, it should go to the backend domain, which is example.com. And even we can give an authorization token. If that domains allows you to log in, you can add a authorization token in the headers. And so in the rules, the basic simple name when action is given. And whenever that this rule matches, it also matches the origin name, which is example com, and then it tries to find the backend domain mapped to the example com. And then you can give the IP or forward host. So this is the basic example of the origin selector rules. Next up, we have redirects. We are all very familiar of the redirects. They allow us to perform edge-based URL rewrites before the request reaches your origin. So having redirects here means that these are executed at the CDN layer and are significantly faster than doing them inside dispatcher or AEM itself. Again, a performance like increasing thing. And redirects can be 301, which is permanent, or 302, which can be temporary. Common use case again includes like vanity URLs, redirecting deprecated pages to new locations, handling local routing, or SEO-driven redirect rules. Because redirects live in the CDN YAML, they are fully version controlled and deployed consistently across all environments. And this eliminates the risk of ad hoc or inconsistent Apache rewrite rules. And it also ensures redirect logic is centralized and easier to audit. Next, we have example of request transformation and response transformation. Basically, these rules let you modify the incoming incoming HTTP request before it is processed by the origin. This is helpful for normalizing URLs, adding headers, cleaning up query params, or modifying behavior based on cookies. A key advantage here is that these transformations occur at the edge, making responses faster and reducing load on AEM. As you can see here as well, we have different kind of rules. In one rule, we are setting some header. In another rule, we are unsetting some headers or unsetting some query params. So based on your requirement, you can set up the rule like this. We can add the headers, we can remove the tracking parameters like UTM source, UTM campaign if needed, and we can rewrite paths as well. Next, we have response transformation, which is similar to request, but it basically modifies the response headers sent back to the client. And these rules execute after the origin has processed the request and the CDN is about to return the response. The common actions include updating cache control headers, adding security headers, which can be like X-frame options, CSP, modifying course headers, and overriding response codes under special conditions. Response rules gives you fine-grained control over the browser, over what the browser receives without modifying AEM backend configuration. So again, here you can see that we are unsetting response header, we are setting a response header, or we are changing one. So yeah, this is useful when the response headers needs to be changed. Okay, let's cover what's the like purge and cache means. Okay, so Fastly provides us with two types of cache clearing. One is cache invalidation, which is the recommended approach. So in this, content expires naturally based on time to live, and headers like cache control or surrogate control. And another one is explicit purge. This immediately removes content before TTL expiry, useful for only urgent changes. So to configure purging, you can also handle that via CDN YAML file. You have to define a purge authenticator in CDN YAML. As you can see here, purge authenticator is nothing but a purge key. And then store that purge keys in Cloud Manager as secret environment variables. Once done, you can run a curl command, which like shown in the example here, and you can specify like if the CDN should perform a hard purge or a soft purge. Also, it can be a single path purge, full path purge, or mixed. Also, like now, what is hard purge and soft purge? So hard purge is when the content becomes unavailable until it is fetched again. And soft purge is content becomes stale but still served while new content is fetched. So generally, soft purge is recommended because it gives user a zero wait experiences while maintaining freshness. So if you are trying to clear the cache, you can use this whole mechanism through the cdn YAML file to clear to like for cache invalidation and clearing cache. Okay, so we have covered the basic development of the CDN YAML file. Where is it placed? What rules can we set up there? How to do that? What is the syntax? And so everything around that. So next comes a WAF add-on. So WAF add-on is basically a web application firewall add-on. So with the default license of Adobe Experience Manager sites or forms, we only get basic traffic filter rules, but they do not provide full web application firewall capabilities. Okay, so for full WAF capabilities, customers must purchase the WAF DDoS protection add-on. And with that license enabled, WAF protects your site against DDoS attacks, bots with bot detection, blocking, rate limiting, and challenges, high request rate patterns, OWASP top 10, which is like SQL injection, CISRF, XSS, PCI requirements, IP based ACL filtering, or optional VCL based custom logic. Adobe and with the WAF add-on, Adobe and Fastly also manages logs, upgrades, rule updates, and alerting. WAF instances that block legitimate traffic are treated as number one priority by Adobe. So you get an extra edge with this WAF add-on, and this is like more required to cover your full security purpose of your CDN. Also, although it comes with a cost, but it is recommended. Okay, so now we'll cover the how the cdn YAML file is deployed. Before moving that, I just want to cover one more aspect of WAF. So once the WAF license is enabled for your particular license, you can add the WAF related rules as well in your cdn YAML file. You just need to add one flag which is related to WAF flag and set it to true because now WAF is active. And then you can make use of all the default rules in your cdn YAML file and set those to true. So once it is deployed, all the security related to WAF add-on will be active on your CDN as well. Now let's cover in like what the deployment look like. And as you all must know, there are mainly two types of pipelines in Cloud Manager as of now, which is full stack and front end. But for CDN deployment, now we also have the configuration pipeline. The configuration pipeline lets you deploy only CDN YAML file changes without touching AEM code or dispatcher changes. It is lightweight, fast, and it typically finishes in under 2 minutes. And if the only change you're making is CDN logic, you should always use this pipeline. This ensures safe, isolated deployments with minimal risk, and of course, very fast action on your CDN changes. I have actually set this up and I regularly work on this config pipeline. It is very, very fast and generally it is like under 2 minutes. Also, if there is a syntax error on your CDN YAML file, it will get failed and it lets you download the log, and so that you know that where you have made the mistake in your CDN YAML. So again, very, very descriptive manner and like very fast. Okay, so now real-time monitoring is very crucial when working with CDN, right? So CDN logs can be streamed into Splunk, New Relic, Datadog, or any other monitoring tool that your organization is using for real-time dashboards and alerts. But if you prefer manual analysis or offline analysis, you can use the ELK dashboard. It is straightforward to set up locally. And once it is ready, you can download the CDN logs from the Cloud Manager and upload it directly into the ELK dashboard for review. With ELK stands for Elastic, Logstash, and Kibana. So with these three things wonderfully combined, we get a very powerful tool and we get like very powerful visuals as well. One is the WAF dashboard and one is the caching dashboard. So WAF dashboard is for security insights, blog requests, attack vendors. So whenever any of your traffic filter rule is hit, it shows you here that what kind of rule was hit and what kind of action was taken for that. Secondly, if like for origin selectors also, if there's a request which should go to your old CMS, it gives you like a whole dashboard for that also, like what request went to the which origin. And then we have caching dashboard as well to see like what was the cache hit miss ratio, latency, performance, and edge behavior. And these dashboards help troubleshoot cache issues, confirm redirects, verify WAF events, and validate performance. So what you see in the screenshot is my locally set up ELK dashboard um, screenshot here. And so like some things have been hidden because they were private. But yeah, as you can see, like there were like 3424 requests, but 476 were blocked because one of my traffic filter rule was being hit. So it really gives you a very descriptive manner in like what rules were hit, what was the action taken, how many requests came. So I would definitely suggest using ELK for all your testing purposes. So we have covered everything. The last thing leg in this whole session is about the alerting. Um, this is something extremely useful for real-time operational monitoring, the Action Center in AEM Cloud Manager. So the Action Center provides immediate real-time alerts whenever something unusual happens at the CDN or traffic level. AEM as a cloud service continuously analyzes traffic patterns, CDN events, and security triggers. And if anything looks suspicious or requires your attention, it sends out email notification as well as in-portal pop-ups. These alerts are designed to help teams react quickly before a performance issue or security incident escalates. There are three major types of Action Center notification you will commonly see. Traffic spikes, alerts when there is unusual surge in request, blocked request if a CDN traffic filter is triggered, and potential DDoS activity if a high volume of requests is detected from suspicious sources. In most cases, the Action Center pop-up gives you all the information you need to resolve the issue. It explains what rule was triggered, which path or domain was impacted, and the approximate time range. But if you need help, there is a contact support link right in the alert. Clicking it opens an Adobe support ticket with the relevant context already captured, making investigations faster and easier. So really, really a very helpful tool when it comes to like when you have rolled out the whole CDN to your prod and is like, there is any kind of suspicious activity which is found out on your CDN. So this is very useful there. So actually, I think we have reached to the end of the session. I would just, yeah, any questions?
I think Soumya, we have one on the chat. So one of the user is asking, what is the error code when rate limiting rule is enabled?
Okay, so it is whenever, so I have tried this and I used Vegeta commands to test it out on the pre-prod domains. So once the rule was triggered, my IP was blocked to view that particular domain and it was 406, unacceptable.
Okay.
I'll just write here.
Cool. Any other questions from anyone else?
Okay, I just want to open this ground for everyone to contribute as well. Like if you have implemented this Adobe Managed CDN for your particular project or organization, and if yes, what were the like? How did you do? What kind of challenges you faced? So Abdul, yes, the answer for your question is yes. We get the ability for custom VCL scripts with WAF add-on.
Okay, I think that's pretty much. If we don't have any other questions, then I can stop the recording, and we can probably meet in the next user group event the next year.
Yeah. So hopefully it was this was a very informational topic for everyone here. And after this, you will get a survey link. Please respond there how this session was. This really helps us making our sessions better and better.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you all. Bye.
Bye.